to a brand new and the final episode of this season's Burning Question series by Fantasy Football Scout. In this series, Pras and Aldo talk about the key hot topics for the week. A bit of a sentimental time with the last game week coming up. Pras, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, man. Can't wait for the end of what has been a very, very long season.
Yeah,
I think it's because of the World Cup. It's been the longest
yeah.
season, and yeah, it's had its ups and downs, and the ups have been higher and the downs have been lower because of the multiple double game weeks. So, ready to attack the last game week and get a little rest.
Yeah, it's a peculiar season if you look at it from, a helicopter view. We had Holland first signing in the beginning of the season. People went against him at first initially, which, in hindsight is crazy to think about. Then we had a short season cut off with the World Cup. The World Cup was a great World Cup in terms of football wise, and then we come back and lots of doubles. Everyone has like the same players, same pool of players to pick from, so it was hard to gain rank. But here we are. We've gotten a couple of messages here and there about people, having a really good season by watching our podcast, and I'm sure other content creators as well. Even if you're not a content creator, I feel like the level of FPL managers has risen up above from last season as well, and I'm sure we'll continue to see that. We've seen people like Stormzy recently come in and get into the FPL world, which is great to see.
FPL is massive.
It's getting massive.
By the
Yeah,
way,
it's
the
getting
people are
massive.
saying your mic is low. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, okay.
So maybe come closer.
Yeah. Is this okay? Is this okay?
Well, we'll find out.
We'll
We'll
see.
find out.
Yeah.
Let's carry
Yeah.
on.
Okay, so yeah, for today's episode, guys, I think a lot of people are doing sort of differential punts, but at the end of the day, like we're gonna get some last minute news, maybe, maybe not, and there's only so much you can do because hits are very dangerous with one, game week to go, and I do think there's some template differential players that people are looking at, and so I guess we'll talk about that, but we'll kind of go through sort of the teams and where their positions are in terms of the league. Then we'll go for final day goal statistics. We'll look at the fixtures, look at clean sheet data, scorer data, as well as whether hits are worth it for this game week. Anything else you want to add here, Pros?
Yeah, I mean, it's my least favorite from a
Mm.
content perspective, Game Week 38, because number one, there's nothing in the future, and you know that we love talking about the future. So apart from Game Week 38, there's nothing to talk about. And the other thing is your probability of being right gets shorter and shorter the smaller the sample is, right? So for example, if I said to you next season, who will be the top 10 FPL scorers, you probably get 7 out of 10 right
Mm-hmm.
because you know over a large game week sample over 38, you probably have Salah, Haaland, Kane, and stuff. So when you get into 10 game weeks, if I ask you the top 10 point scorers, it gets even lower. Maybe you'll get 3 right, maybe 4. In one game week, you have no clue. I mean, and the proof is that kings of the game week that comes up, right? That team of the week, you have no clue who these players are. There's no logic to bringing them in. And so, yeah, it's just darts. If you have now today is not a magic bean, it's a dart. So you have one or two darts that you have to throw, and you just hope that you hit the bullseye. And that will also depend on what is your risk threshold where you are chasing or not. So we'll keep that in mind. There is no wrong answer in terms of a punt.
Yep, yep. As Rahul says, Game Week 38 is all vibes transfer, which I partly agree with. I'm messing around with the mic situation here. I guess it's muffling a bit. So your feedback is welcome in the chat if you guys feel like it's a little bit off, but I think it should be better now. So without further ado, let's get into our first slide, Pras.
Yep, let's do it.
So this is sort of the what teams are still at play. Maybe if you want to explain the top half, I can do a little bit of the relegation and what Everton, Leicester, and Leeds have to play for.
Well, so Premier, obviously, congratulations to Man City for winning the title. It has had a massive impact, the Arsenal game on this game week. Basically, Man City not playing any of their players. Even tonight, I'm seeing a lot of players haven't traveled, like, or rumored to not have traveled, like Grealish and Akanji and Diaz. So it's had a big impact on this game week. We were expecting the impact to come in game week 38, but it's come now. So Man City are through. And then the other thing is all the top 5 teams, because if Man United get even a point against Chelsea, then all the top 5 teams have nothing to play for in game week 38. So motivations, I will talk about it. Motivations are irrelevant, by the way, but motivations play a role in the minutes.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to win the game to win the league, then all your big players will play. So the minutes are higher. If you don't care, then the minutes are lower. You could get a 45th minute sub, a 55th minute sub, and so on and so forth. So that's when we talk about motivations, we're talking in the context of the minutes the big players are expected to get. So in the top 5 teams, it's now a complete lottery in terms of who will start if, like I said, if Man United win. So therefore, not only who starts, but who is subbed off early or not. And we're in trouble because most of our teams are comprised of these top 5 teams, but we will see.
Yep.
Coming into 6th, Brighton have obviously secured European football, but they haven't secured Europa League. They are, mathematically, they can still be caught by Aston Villa, but because their goal difference is 20 and, Aston Villa is +4, it's very unlikely. So let's say if they lose 5-0 to Man City today, then Villa will have to beat them by 5-0 to get to Europa League, which is all very unlikely. So theoretically speaking, or not theoretically, but practically speaking, Brighton have made it. And not only have they made it to Europe, they made it to the Europa League. Then is the interesting bit, which is Aston Villa, Spurs, and Brentford. Aston Villa are desperate for Europe. They haven't been in Europe for a long time. They will want the Conference League. And if you come 7th, you'll get the Conference League. So they will want to win that game. And so again, it plays a little bit into X minutes, why we have Ollie Watkins as the thumbnail. Basically, they will want to beat Brighton in the last game. Spurs, you can argue both ways. Maybe they don't want Europa League. Conference League. Because you saw this year, right? They completely threw it. They were not interested.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean they will not beat Leeds, but that just means that their motivations to do it aren't coming from the fact that they have to win to reach the Conference League. And then Brentford have a game against City. They have to rely on both Spurs and Villa not winning for them to get there, and then they have to beat Man City. So that's at least the top half of the table. Relegation, you want to talk about?
Just to go back, so your assumption with Brighton is they're going to still field their strongest team possible.
In the last game week, no. I mean, if they get a point, let's say against Man City, then they're done. Then the Europa League is done. So I mean, anyway, De Zerbi has rotated so much that their lineup becomes a question mark anyway. But it could be anything. So we can't say anything about their lineups. If you don't get in leagues, assume that the first team starts. But there's no guarantee.
Yeah, so at the bottom half of the table, I think it's quite interesting. First, shout out to Nottingham Forest for getting into the Premier League last game week, which was awesome to see. I think a good way to look at it is Everton is a pretty hot team to talk about this game week. I think a lot of people are considering a differential there, whether it be for defensive assets such as Pickford is a decent keeper option for this week. I also don't think you should make a keeper move. It's just not enough upside for one game week. But Everton's an interesting place. If they lose, and for example Leicester or Leeds win, then they automatically get relegated. If they do tie, they do get to 34 points, which would mean that the only way this, correct me if I'm wrong, Pras, is Leicester would have to win. Both of them get to 34 points, and I believe Leicester has less goal difference, so they would qualify through.
Sound is low again, Andy. At least that's what I'm hearing.
Okay, sorry guys, can you hear?
Okay, well, they'll tell us. So if you increased it for both of us, then that's fine. So yeah, I mean, look, Everton. Yeah, it's pretty simple that Everton need to win against Bournemouth, and then they're staying in the Premier League, and that would relegate both Leicester and Leeds. This is, by the way, very important because if somehow they are 2-0 up. Right, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, Leicester are going to go for it. They have to go for a win. They have to go for a win. Leeds have to go for a win." Imagine if Everton are 2-0 up on the 10th minute. That's going to basically completely deflate Leicester and Leeds, right? Because they know that they're heading out, and Bournemouth are already okay. Okay, people are saying better.
Yeah, we're good. Yep.
Okay, so Bournemouth are already not as you could argue on the beach practically and also physically. So then it's not like they're going to push them for a 2-all. So it's very important to understand the Everton game will have big implications on Leicester and Leeds. And so if Everton win, they're done. If Everton even draw, now what happens there is if Leicester and Leeds absolutely need to win to overtake them. There's actually a very interesting scenario where Leeds could overtake Everton. And if let's say they beat Spurs by 3 goals, they could actually go through by number of goals scored, because they would have the same number of points. They would have the same goal difference. It would come down to the number of goals scored, and therefore Leeds would qualify if Everton draw and Leeds win by 3 goals. So yeah, lots of interesting scenarios. But for me, the relegation scrap becomes interesting if Everton are not winning or if they're losing to Bournemouth.
Yeah. You think like they will hear halftime and then the game state changes and this and that?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess our sound is good now.
Well, some are saying I'm too high, but anyway, we'll see. We'll adjust ourselves.
Okay.
So interesting implications then for people who are the teams that are playing that are playing Leicester and Leeds, because let's say the Everton game is 1-1 or they're losing 1-0 to Bournemouth, then those teams have to go for it. They have to go for it. I mean, Leicester will have their kit man playing up front if on the 80th minute, it's they're drawing or they're behind and Everton aren't winning. So there's scenarios there where actually you could say, I'm not going to target the team that is motivated. I'm going to target the team that is playing the team that is motivated, because they have to go for it because of their what they have to do to get there. But these are all narratives, and there'll be a narrative for everything. You can argue each way on Arsenal, on Liverpool, on the relegation teams, and the game could go either way. This is why I'm saying this is all vibes. So this is at least what I'm thinking, that I might actually not consider Everton as much as I will consider Crystal Palace, for example, because they have nothing to play for. They already know that going in. With Everton, I'm taking a punt that if they score a couple of goals, the game is dead. They will be happy to defend. Bournemouth will be happy to sort of not overexert themselves, and that has implications on Leicester and Leeds.
I think when you say the narrative, I think it's a common narrative that's going to be played this week, and for good reason. You target the teams like Leeds, Leicester, Everton, who have something to play for, especially if they're needing to get a goal or needing to win or needing to get 3 goals, as you mentioned. Then, you might want to get a Spurs player to play against Leeds. You might want to captain Kane, this and that. But at the same time, I think as we transition to the next slide, just because the teams in the middle are in the beach doesn't mean they're not going to score. And we've seen historically in Gameweek 38, there's been a lot of goals and fewer. I don't know about fewer clean sheets, but there's definitely been a lot of goals. And I guess we'll transition to that one.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is from an article on the Scout. I think Neil did it, and no, actually, this is Tom. So this is Tom, who's been collecting this data for a while. And what this shows is quite simple, that on Gameweek 38, number of goals per game for the last 12 seasons have been higher than the all other games combined. So very clear that if you're going for a punt, this is the week to go for a punt, go for an attacking punt. And, you will get more goals on average. And they don't have to come from teams, like you said, Andy, from teams that have something to play for. It could be actually the teams that have nothing to play for that could provide the goals. I mean, very famous 5-5 between West Brom and Man United at Sir Alex Ferguson's final game. People keep talking about that game as the final game where Lukaku scored a hat-trick, 10 goals in that game. So yeah, I mean, these things do happen, but they happen more infrequently than we think.
Yeah, I don't think I want to form a narrative here, but I did do some looking into the games of between 18-19 to 21-22, and you can see there goals per game, right? So average 3.9, for example. If you actually look into it, let's say there's 10 games in the final game week of 38 and 21-22. There was 6 games with 4 goals or more. So that could have been like a 3-1. It could have been a 5-0. I believe Man City won 5-0 or something. And then, 2021, there was 3 games with 4 more goals. The previous season, there was 5 games with 4 more goals, which is like 50% of games. And then the previous season, there was 4 games with 4 more goals. And of those games, Man City in the last 4 seasons, Gameweek 38, have gone 3-2, 5-0, 5-0, 4-1. So look, again, I'm not trying to form narratives, but I do think there's there's a little bit of truth in the fact that there are a lot of goals to be scored in the final game week. Now, can you
Yep.
pick out the right player from the right team that's going to score? That's shot in the dark. So yeah.
I mean, perfect example was this week, right? Let's say everybody found out that Man City has won the league
Mm-hmm.
before after the deadline, but let's say the deadline was Sunday morning. Everybody found out that Man City has won the league. They're going to heavily rotate. Mahrez is starting without Haaland. People would go crazy for Mahrez, right? They would
Yeah.
captain him.
Yeah.
They would say, okay, this is going to be the party week. He's going to get his start. He blanked.
And then Rodrigo scores 3 goals. Yeah. Rodri.
So, yeah, I mean, so it's just very difficult to call in a single game week what happens. Throw your dart and hope for the best.
Yeah. 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 Just interesting stuff to look at. I don't think we should form any narratives or look at these numbers and think too highly of it. But yeah.
So when we look at the next slide, and now let's talk about the teams. So let's talk about the fixtures, and
Yeah.
let's guess who our punts will be. I want us to think about 3 criteria for a punt, right? Let's talk about, if you're picking a punt, what is the expected minutes? So that comes into, the motivations of that particular team. Is it a good attacking team? And what is the motivation of the opponent? So there are other criteria like home or not and stuff, but I think for me, these are the 3 that I want.
Okay.
Do I expect that guy to get minutes? Now, you may find that out through pre-deadline leaks or whatever, or the manager. In Game Week 38, by the way, managers are a lot more relaxed as well because they don't have a lot to hide.
Yeah.
So they could just say that, Carson's going to get the final game. Edison won't start. You may get, or, Klopp could say Firmino will get his send-off, or maybe not, but you get some of these a little bit before. You might get them pre-deadline through a legitimate journalist rather than just a random Twitter account. So look out for that. I think so. Minutes will be important. I think good teams is very important. I think I see a lot of these punts going for players where teams are not even expected to score 2 goals. I mean, I'm sorry, Everton. We'll talk about, and in fact, let's go to Everton. But Everton are decent, but I'm not feeling Doucouré, McNeil as much as some of the other punts because Everton just don't tend to score that many goals. So what are we expecting? That at 3-0, they will continue to put all their, they will retreat at 2-3-0. They will basically say, okay, Premier League is done. We don't need to go gung-ho. So it doesn't really, I don't think it becomes like a 4-5-6-0. Everton are never that kind of team. I would rather actually punt on an Everton defender. I know defender punts aren't so big.
Yeah, but how do you read the Everton defense compared to the offense? Like, is it?
Well, I just think they will play safety first because they will, they will say, if we keep a clean sheet today, then the other 2 teams have to win. And beating West Ham or beating Spurs is not easy, even though you're at home. So I think their mindset will be, let's keep a clean sheet. Let's keep it tight. We will attack. Of course, it's Bournemouth. So we will attack 1 or 2. If we get 1 or 2 goals, that's it. Close your shop. We don't need to overexert ourselves. That's it. Job done. So this is why I think this is not, again, this is my narrative, that this is a 2-0 game. That's it. And it may change if Bournemouth eke out a goal early on and then the whole thing changes because they have to attack and then there's lots of goals. But my personal thinking is that's what the manager is telling them before starting the match.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I think it's going to be for Everton sort of a chess match and sort of see how the first half goes. And as you mentioned, if they're up, then they'll focus on defending, getting that 3 points and locking in the Premier League. I'm sure they'll be aware of the other games going on. There might be pressure on a 1-0 if they're leading, for example, and you see the other 2 teams are somehow beating Spurs and I forget who Leicester's playing, but yeah.
West Ham,
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, interesting. I guess we get to Everton before we get to Crystal Palace.
I also want to shout out Adam from Avara Jeff FPL. He's been shouting the Everton defense, or Yerry Mina or whoever.
Has he been?
Look, I think, we tend to think, I mean, we've just shown a stat where there's more goals, but you have to ultimately pick players that you think will score points. And I don't think Everton attacker, like an Everton defender for me, is a better pick. And then that's another thing that we haven't talked about is when we get these leagues, you will see that 2 or 3 of your players may not start. Remember last season? I think it was Alonso. That we got a pre-game week 38 deadline leak that Alonso isn't starting, and everybody basically made a defender transfer as their last transfer in game week 38. I think it was 38.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is, don't be closed to only going for an attacker punt. I think if you hear, let's say Trent is not starting, at least in everybody's mind, they should have somebody that they will get as a defender punt if some news trickles in.
Like you're just trying to put water in the hype of like, or like slow down the hype of like you need to go for an attacking high potential hauler, when even that is very difficult to predict and pick out.
We will see at the end of this, we will show you the predicted points on the FF Scouts Rate My Team website. The average predicted points of pretty much everyone whose name isn't Haaland or Salah is 4.8, 4.9.
Yeah.
So if you're going to take out a player that's playing, especially take a hit to replace them with a player that is also playing, I don't think the upside is there. But if your player isn't playing, so my example being Trent, taking him out for a Tarkowski, using that money and getting somebody else. This is applicable for 2 free transfers, by the way. Using that money to upgrade a Isak to a Jesus, I think has much higher potential, even if you think Eze is the better punt.
Yeah.
So we're taking out 2 players that are not playing for 2 high upside punts, even if they're not the highest upside punts. That's a better play than just, getting 1 pointer from a guy who's not starting.
I mean, my take on the Everton defense is that if you're going to go for an Everton defender, why not go for a Ben White against, I think it's Wolves? Why not wait for maybe Robbo's bench and you can go for a cheap Tsimikas, right?
Could do.
Why I feel like that's where I would lean. I don't know about Poro, but even that gives me a little bit more confidence. And not that Spurs are playing great, but at least he's very attacking, right? So, maybe you're just being blinded by this game state and Everton having to get a clean sheet and win when there's no guarantee they're going to get a clean sheet. And maybe Ben White is just a outstandingly better option than an Everton defender.
Fair. I mean, I just want to make clear that there's nothing we've heard in Trent. I'm just using Trent as an example of a team that may not have anything to play for in game week 38. But look, I mean, the other thing to talk about from an Everton point of view, McNeil actually played left back because Mykolenko was injured. And so we are hoping for the news from Sean Dyche on Mykolenko being back. Otherwise, McNeil is dead as a punt anyway, because, if he plays a defender, that's not something that you want. Shall we go to Crystal Palace?
Yeah, this is fun. I'm enjoying this, like, sort of talking to you about figuring out who the right punts are.
I'm going to pour cold water on all of them. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Because ultimately you can't predict it. So we have to manage our expectations a little bit. When it comes to teams like Everton, Crystal Palace have been fairly attacking. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about them.
Yeah.
Crystal Palace ticks the box on good attacking team, at least on more recent data. It ticks the box on opponent motivation. Because opponent is not motivated. Opponent is in fact drunk because opponent has just been confirmed to be staying in the Premier League. So it ticks those 2 boxes. So now find a player that has good minutes, and that ticks all 3 criteria. So this is why, unfortunately, the whole of FPL community is going to be buying Eze this week, assuming all the other players start. In fact, I think he's one of the good punts, especially if Zaha's out. He's also on penalties, alongside maybe an Olise, who should, I think those 2 are excellent punts to go for in game week 38.
I agree. I think the only option in Crystal Palace is Eze. I think he's very reliable. I think he's proven to get FPL points as well, especially in the second part of the season. So I do like Eze, and I do think that with Roy coming in, the team's playing differently. Not that Vieira was doing bad, they just couldn't score, and now they seem to be finding the back of the net. So I do like Eze. I don't think it screams like maybe it is the view that we have on Crystal Palace and wanting to always go for a player from a top 4, top 5 team. That kind of skews your vision of like how good these players are for mid-tier teams. But I don't think it screams like a lot of points. Maybe 1 goal, maybe 1 assist here and there. But yeah, that's my view on Eze.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some people looking at captaincy shouts and stuff. I mean, I still back the bigger teams to score more goals. You just never know. I mean, this could become a 0-0 type of game as well. So fair if you wanted to go there, but I think, yeah, apart from Eze, by the way, I also want to shout out Edward. And why I'm doing that is because you have to look at the weaknesses in the current template or FPL managers teams. I think the weaknesses will be an attacker, because a lot of people may still have a lingering Isak, or even Alvarez, for example, if he's not starting. So I think looking at an attacker like replacement for, Edward could fund a Mitoma up to a Saka, for example,
Yeah.
or a Luis Diaz. So it gets you a very different player. So you could go for that combo instead of an Eze type player. So some people with one free transfer, they're thinking Brighton midfielder, I don't need two anymore. They may not have anything to play for. They're away to Villa. So yes, easy transfer to Eze. And I think that works. But what will happen is you will hear pre-deadline that one of your players, that is not called a Brighton mid, is not starting. And at that point, don't overcommit yourself that I have to get Eze, I have to get Eze. Don't get it into your mind that I have to get Eze, because what's going to happen is you will have to take care of that position. Let's say it's Rashford, as an example. I used Trent before. Now let's use Rashford. Man United are done. Rashford has been ill. Rashford's not starting. Now, Eze could be a decent pick for Rashford, but maybe there are other midfielders that are of Rashford's price. Maybe if Mahrez is starting, or Gundo is starting, or you have some funds left and you can get to Saka, Odegaard, Trossard. So we are fixating so much on Eze. The reason is because people have one free transfer and they have a spare Brighton mid to lose, and that's why people are focusing on it. He's a good pick, but there are also lots of other good picks.
Yeah, all fair. I mean, one of the great things about having two free transfers is Eze could also be sort of the fantastic option / enabler to get to a possible Kane. I mean, I don't know if you can do Bruno to Eze and have enough from Isak to Kane. Probably not, but he could be also, he could be a good enabler for that second power move, whatever it may be.
Yeah. I guess I'm just trying to talk people out of hits. That if you put Eze into your mind so much that you'll wake up and 15 minutes to deadline, you'll get news, and then you'll do those moves of players who are not starting, but then get Eze as well, because everyone has told you Eze is scoring a hat trick. It's just a game.
Yeah.
He could blank.
Nice.
Then Jordan Ayew. I mean, there's also people out there who are thinking everybody is picking Eze. I'm sick of this. Go for Jordan Ayew. I think he's fine. He's just not on penalties. Maybe data is slightly worse than Eze. Who cares? It's game week 38.
Yeah, I think I'd still go for Eze, but sure, you could go Ayew. I wouldn't be mad about it. Yeah.
Like, if let's say you have a mini league rival, right? Who has also been listening to content, right? He will go for Eze. And if you're 5 points behind, go for Ayew.
Yeah.
Or Olise.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to talk about. So this is the time.
Yeah.
This is the time. Play game theory.
Yeah.
If they have a complete Twitter template team, they're ahead. They will play it safe. They'll get.
Are you in any mini leagues that you're completely invested in, like the early days of, like, you know what I'm talking about, when you were in mini leagues where you would need
when you start the game?
Yeah.
I think everyone starts in the same journey, right? When you start the game, you have your work leagues, you have your friends
about
league,
it. Yeah.
and you're obsessed.
Yeah.
Then you find Twitter, you find Fantasy Football Scout, and then you thrash all your friends.
Yeah.
Then you're well ahead of all of them. So then they stop even inviting you for any incentive related leagues, and so you're kicked out of all of them. Then your mini leagues become your friends on Twitter. Your WhatsApp league, or your FF Scout mods and cons league. So there is nobody like that. I need to sort of chase down that I'm second. But that's me particularly. I think our viewers may have that in many cases. They could be second. So yeah, don't go Eze if you think your number one guy will also go Eze.
I had a very close friendship group, like 6 to 10 players, sort of a mini league that my obsession began with. And initially it was like I was like, oh, I need to beat them. So I was like, consuming content, and sort of, it was just too easy, right? At a certain point, what happens with the real, like, sort of casuals is you almost want to help them, because it's such a, drastic, difference in points. But yeah, it's been interesting with the mini league situation. I think I'm more invested in my overall rank now, but yeah.
Which is actually not the way to play. I'm actually, it's one of those things where I wish I could go back not know about EO, just pick on vibes.
Yeah.
But now when you think about overall rank, then you're thinking, like I've been demotivated for the last 4 5 weeks
Yeah.
because,
If you
and
know too
demotivated, by the way, is
much.
not a bad
Mm,
thing. Like I didn't care because Wilson did well and I went Isak. I didn't care because I'm like, if I'm not getting top 10K, I'm okay. I'm not going to go down below 100K. Then it's all a little bit of everything is fine. Like I don't like, I'll pick two players that'll do differently, but if they don't do well, it's not the end of the world. So OR actually is a little bit of a boring way to play. I wish I could go back to playing, having a close mini league with a friend
yeah.
or a bunch of friends and work leagues.
But you know what I enjoy the process, right? You have in anything in life, I feel like you have to sort of enjoy the process. Maybe not everything, but especially like when I play golf, I thought the process of practicing and getting better, I was addicted to getting better, right? And in terms of FPL too, like you can spend all week on it, thinking about it, and get it wrong compared to the guy who's on shout out Let's Talk FPL for like 10 minutes before the deadline and makes similar moves or gets information in 5 minutes and makes a move, and that move may pay off better than you. But I just think that we have something special in that we're talking about each game week for an hour and we're obsessing over picks. We're thinking about helicopter planning, this and that. But I just think that's part of the beauty and why we're playing FPL. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. You have to accept your competition. I mean, if you're talking about the whole game, and if the game wasn't as big as it is, we can sit here complain, but it's because the game is as big as it is, we get, like you mentioned, Stormzy talking about FPL, people going on Sky, people talking about, having 400K subs. So the game is getting bigger. Yeah, there will be some side effects of that, but that's for the game to fix. But we digress.
And speaking of Sky, you were on your second appearance this last weekend. How was that experience, and was it different from the first time we went?
I mean, the whole thing was. I mean, your comfort level is similar, right? As in a lot better because you're going for the second time. You know where the thing is, where you have to sign in, where you have to go. Haley was still there, so I think in a lot of sense it was much better. But then you weren't there, so so it's not the same.
Nice, nice. Okay, let's transition to Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham.
Let's go Liverpool. Liverpool is
Okay.
an interesting one because a lot of people have double Liverpool. So I don't think Liverpool is a buy as such. But I also want to say Liverpool is a team that is fairly reliable for a team news. So, right, we also have to
Interesting.
take this stuff into account
Because they're a
because
big
let's say,
team.
no, because they have accounts that share their news,
Okay.
like Anfield Express, and there's like big accounts that share their news well before kickoff. I mean, I think the previous game we had their team 4 hours before kickoff. So, my point is, this is a team where you have to think about what happens if. What happens if Firmino is starting? Does it mean that you'll pick him because he's playing against Southampton? Or are you afraid that Firmino basically comes on, plays for 50 minutes, claps, gives lets Gakpo finish the game almost like a handover of what he's trying to do? Or do you think that actually Firmino is good for 90 minutes? So think about that now because we may get
Damn.
Liverpool news.
Yeah.
When you're thinking about Darwin Nunes starting, I think for me that would be great. Like that is something that I'm very excited. If he starts, he's in. If Jota is starting, he's in. If I
Mm.
can afford it, obviously. But then if Diaz is starting in the standard Gakpo Diaz Salah, which has been what they've been playing with, then I'm thinking Diaz, is he gonna get 60, 70 minutes? He's coming back from an injury. He's definitely gonna give Jota some minutes. I'm less keen. So I'm just trying to play it in my head on these scenarios. Another one, if Firmino's starting, that for me impacts a little bit on whether I'm captaining Salah or not,
Mm.
because it's nothing to do with him giving him penalties or anything. But I think they're doing it because they think this is more of a testimonial. This is more of a we can take it easy. But if it's their first team that we hear that's starting, then that means Klopp has told them, take this game seriously. We want to go for it. So Captain Salah becomes a much bigger option. At least those are my thoughts for Liverpool.
Yeah, it's tough to predict. Even if United lock up the Champions League spot, I think it's Thursday, right? Even if they
Yeah.
lock it up, who knows, right? Maybe Maybe Klopp still wants to be very serious, and there's no Firmino testimonial. But I do feel like in that scenario, Firmino definitely gets to start, and he did perform well. So yeah, Firmino is very interesting. Have you thought about getting Firmino at all?
It depends. I think I
Mm-hmm.
like other strikers more,
Mm-hmm.
like Jesus, like I'll talk about Villa, Ollie Watkins, but he's decent. But I don't like the minutes. Even if he starts, I don't like the minutes. So it
Yeah.
doesn't fit the criteria of, I think, opponent motivation, it fits, attacking team fits. Minutes, I'm not very sure of. Even if he starts, I'm not very sure of. So again, it could work, but you could also see a 50th minute sub.
Okay. For those that might not have Trent, do you go to Trent?
Nah.
Really?
I, it's difficult to get to him with one free, if you have so many funds in the bank, then you would have gone for Trent anyway. So it's
Mm-hmm.
going to need two transfers to get to Trent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just, again, we talked about defense and clean sheets, and it's an away game. I don't think you have to go for Trent if you don't have him. But I think most people, Trent is like 80% owned now.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Salah
So
captaincy. Yeah.
yeah, I think I said about Salah captaincy. I think it's definitely on the table.
Yeah.
If it's a strong team that they put out. Like my thinking is this applies to Arsenal as well. What is the manager telling the team before game week, before this final game week? He's telling them that look, we've not achieved what we wanted to. In Arsenal's case, we'll come to it. I mean, Arsenal, I think, have overachieved or have done very well. But the talk will
Oh,
be
careful,
let's go
Pras.
out and put
Careful.
on a show for the last game to
Mm-hmm.
show that we're going to be strong next season. And I think both Arsenal and so both Klopp and Arteta will be saying similar things where forget about what's happened in the last 5, 6 game weeks. We haven't, in Liverpool's case, made the Champions League, or in Arsenal's case, won the league. But let's go out on a bang so that people know that we're serious for next season. That's what I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Arsenal. Let's go
Arsenal.
for
Yep.
Arsenal.
Yep.
I I really like the fact that people are going lukewarm on Arsenal.
I love it. I love it too. Yeah.
Because yes, they lost to Forest, but that game, Forest away, has been tricky. Forest were playing for their lives. Arsenal had just sort of you could see that they knew that the league is going.
Yeah.
So it was gone. Arsenal at home, final home game of the season.
Yeah. Nothing to
A
lose.
lot of
Yeah.
I know two people who've bought over £500 tickets for this game 8 weeks ago
Uh-huh.
because they thought Arsenal will lift the trophy. Now, sorry for them, they're not going to see that. But what I mean is, Arsenal fans will be up for this game
Yeah.
to celebrate a great season.
Yeah.
Because I think Arsenal have had a great season.
Mm-hmm.
So just because they've had last few weeks of disappointment, I think Arteta will be very, very strong about let's end on a high. We have to leave the season on a high because it's a great season. We've lost out to a very, very, very good team, but that doesn't mean we are ourselves not very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
So he plays first team, and I think they win 4-0. That's my feeling for this game.
When I hear like dude, this is why like FPL managers, like even though we're not like football, we are football focused, but it's like, there's gameplay here, right? When I hear the narrative of Arsenal dropped the ball, they had a 7-8 point lead and they lost it. Like that stuff frustrates me because it's like, bro, like they had a very tough schedule in the second half of the season. They don't have the money or depth like Man City does. You saw what happened to United. Like we saw this unfold, right? We saw it was going to be extremely difficult for them to, maintain this race. They also had a very hot start. They had a very hot sort of mid season. Like it's a long season, and you need a lot of good players that come off the bench that can be put into the team and they're a young team as well, right? So
Very, very.
at the same time, you don't want to downplay this because you still want to, get your players involved enough to think that they're disappointed, they want more, they need to get better, the board needs to go out and try to sign more players. And they don't want this to be like a one season wonder type of thing. So it'll be very important for them to go out on a high morale and come back in the summer, make some signings, and we'll see. We'll see if they're the real deal next season. I think next season is going to be a very important, thing in the Arsenal timeline. They have all the people, coaches, players in place to go off this and go for a run for the next couple of seasons. We'll see about that, but
Yeah.
I hate that narrative. They didn't drop the ball. I do think they
It's
had a good
it's
season.
social media, man.
Mm.
I think the people who are saying that are either Spurs fans, which is fair enough, or basically they don't recognize what this team has done. People were not even expecting them to make Champions League this year. So to go from that,
Adam.
um, of course, Adam is in the chat, and yeah, Spurs fans can be happy, but yeah, to go from people not predicting you to be in the Champions League to actually coming second quite clearly, ahead of Liverpool, ahead of Man United, ahead of teams that were expected to make top four. Maybe not Man United as such, but even Spurs were so good under Conte. So they have had a wonderful season. So I have no doubt in my mind that they will play a very strong team, and I have no doubt also, given how poor Wolves have been away from home, that this is going to be a battering.
Yeah. Okay, so let's pick your best defensive option, midfield option, and attacking. I think is obvious, Jesus. But
Defensive, I'm not that keen.
okay, interesting.
I mean, if Kivior is starting and he funds something, Kivior is 4.0.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say Kivior is starting and Jesus is starting, and somebody wanted to do a double transfer to afford Isak to Jesus to downgrade, let's say Trippier to a 4.0 defender, fine, then that makes sense. But I think an Everton defender is equally good as an Arsenal defender. Arsenal have not been as great defensively, and I don't think they will focus as much on defense. So I'm thinking maybe 4-1 or something like that. So in midfield, yeah, Odegaard, Trossard, all good, and of course Saka if you can get there.
Yeah, but if you had to pick, I prefer Odegaard over Trossard any day. How about yourself?
I mean, I'm done picking between Arsenal mids. I think we spent enough. It's one game week. Get the guy you can afford. Of course, you have money. If you have money, you go Odegaard. Because I think the one thing about this game is because it's the final home game, there will be a lot of subs as well. Now, I don't have any data to prove this, but I think people like to give a run out, for thanking players. So Fabio Vieira might play, or come on. Nketiah might come on. So thinking through that as well, even Ryan Nelson might come on. So just thinking through that, who will get the most minutes out of them? I think Saka is obviously the most secure,
Yeah.
although Nelson sometimes comes on for him. But fair enough. I mean, I think all of them are decent.
Yeah. By the way, Hong Chan scored for Wolves. In case you're feeling that.
There's some behind the scenes talk on Lopetegui not actually staying on next season.
Oh, really?
Because I mean, this is just rumored stuff. But he's been disappointed with how much Wolves have not, or how little Wolves have backed him. I mean, he's an elite manager. He was ex-Real Madrid, ex-Spain, right?
Yeah.
So he hasn't been backed. And in fact, because of FFP, they might have to actually sell players next season instead of buying more. So it may not work out, but all the more reason, all my narratives again for Wolves are they have nothing to play for. Manager is disinterested. They've been horrible away from home. You have a home team. If Arsenal score a goal early on, then this is a party.
Yeah.
If Wolves score early on, then it could also become something very flat where Arsenal end up doing 1-1 or something.
Yeah. I like it. Nice.
So narratives on Arsenal. And yeah, if I have the funds and I have the opportunity, I'm going Arsenal mid over Eze. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Let's go to the next one, which is
Spurs. Would you do Bruno to Saka if there's nothing else you needed to do?
Nah, I'm not taking out good players for good players.
Okay.
That's not what I'm gonna do.
That's what
I wouldn't do Bruno to Salah or anything. One game, man. One game. If your player is starting, he's on penalties, he's playing a good fixture, he's ticking all the three criterias, then there's no need. Unless you're captaining, obviously. Let's say you don't have Salah and you want to go Bruno back to Salah because you have to captain Salah. Fair.
Yep. Okay, let's go to Tottenham. Kane is a very hot topic. If you could get to Kane without selling Haaland, I think that's a brilliant move. It probably takes two moves to get there. So it could be, again, that Eze move in order to fund one of your other strikers up. I think he's a good captaincy option. I do think if the scenario I want to talk about is if we ever hear that Haaland is out, everybody's going to flock to Haaland, to Kane, and then probably captain either Kane or Salah, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. You could think of a double move if Haaland is out with, let's say, a Brighton mid and Haaland to Jesus and Saka. That's something that I have in mind if Haaland is out. But I think, but that's because I'm very high on that Arsenal game. But I think on the Leeds game, look, man, I mean, what can you say? Kane will get a goal for sure.
Yeah.
So if you want your narratives, then yeah, how many does he need for 20 goals?
I'm
Let
not
me.
sure. Hmm.
He's 2 goals off 30 goals. Sorry, he's 2 goals short of 30 goals.
Yeah.
So yeah, brace is coming in.
Yeah.
Tell me
Yeah.
about Sun. Would you go Sun?
Yeah. I'm. This is why we need to get to bus teams today, because you need to tell me how to get to Sun. I want Sun so bad.
I already talked you out of Sun before that Crystal Palace game. Imagine if you sold Salah for Sun that week.
I
What was
know.
it?
I
Four
know.
weeks ago.
So that's why the Bruno thing I kind of like subtly asked.
Look, I think it's fair. I'm not gonna shoot any option down
Yeah.
this week because this week's implications are none. If you go for it, if you normally in game week 31 you make a bad transfer, you have to unwind the transfer, and that so the mistake actually costs you more than just one game week. Here it's fine. It's
Yeah.
just one game week. So Sun, I think, is a good option. If someone can tell me that he definitely starts and it's not Richarlison
He's
and Kane
definitely
or
going to
something,
start.
some
He's
funky
definitely going to
setup.
start. I think I'm 98% sure he's going to start because, what's his name? Who's the coach right now for Spurs?
Ryan
Mason.
Mason.
Yeah, Mason just like there's no. From what I've seen, every time he comes in as an interim coach, he just sticks his best players in the team no matter what. So I'm very convinced he starts with alongside Kane, and they're playing like a two top right now.
Yeah, but this is why I'm afraid that Richarlison could start. Richarlison didn't start the last game. They even had players like Danjuma and basically they were a little bit on rotation.
Hmm.
Like Poro didn't start, so it felt like he was showing the new manager, who they don't know who it is yet, that these are all the options that are on the table. It's my only little inkling that what happens if Richarlison starts. Kane's still going to start. So I'm not saying Sun won't start, but I think does he get 90 minutes or not is my question.
Yeah, I don't know about 90 minutes. I think he gets 75 plus. I think he's a good punt. I don't think he's a option that I can scream for this season. It's been a tough season. Still, he got 10 plus goals, and but I do think Kane is the better option if he can get
Kane
there.
is the pick. Kane is
Yeah.
the pick. Against Leeds. This is also true for West Ham when we come to that. For Spurs and West Ham, you want the players that will play the last 30 minutes.
Yeah, when they're
because
tired and
because
game state
they're no,
changes.
not just
Mhm.
tired, because of the
Mhm.
scenario that they have to go for a win if Everton are not winning.
Right,
So
league
they,
state.
they have to go for a win. This was my logic, by the way, starting Isak over Trippier. It didn't work out, but basically I was thinking the same thing, that Leicester have to go for it. So I want the guy who plays the last 30 minutes, and that could be Isak. And it turned out, I mean, Wilson was subbed off, Isak was playing number 9, but Leicester had a very weird game where they just said, okay, we're going to take a point here and then we'll attack the West Ham game. But they can't do that now. They have to go for it. So you need the player who plays the last 30 minutes. If Son starts and he's subbed off on the 70th minute for Richarlison, he's a useless punt.
Mm.
But that's why Kane is ultimate. Kane is going to
Ultimate,
play
yeah.
90 minutes and he's going to be there for that break when Leeds have overcommitted and they have to go for a goal, and Kane's just going to either pass the ball to whoever scores or score himself.
Okay.
So he's great. Crane is a great punt, and Poro is a great punt as well.
Yeah.
If he starts again, if he starts.
Yeah. Okay, let's get through the a couple more teams. We're nearing the hour mark, Pras.
Okay, so let's do Bournemouth Everton. I think Solanke, if you have him, but you don't buy him. Man United Fulham. I think everyone is on double or triple Man United, so there's nothing to do there particularly. A lot of people are getting tempted by selling Bruno. I wouldn't do it, man.
Yeah. Guys,
Unless
just
he's not starting.
yeah, you'd keep Bruno against Fulham at home.
Bruno can score a 12-pointer against Fulham. I mean, if people didn't have him and Bruno was, let's say, 6 million, people would be saying he's my punt for this game week. Bruno on pens, playing a Fulham team who have nothing to play for. Just because he's a little bit more expensive and we have him and he's not a new shiny toy, people are thinking, oh, I can use his money to get another shiny toy.
Let's say
But
you
there's
have
nothing wrong with the shiny toy.
let's say you have one free transfer, Pras, and then Bruno. Like I do think he starts, right? I don't think there's no doubt. I don't know. Maybe he gets rested, but let's say he starts. Let's say the Rashford thing is carried on and they have nothing to play for in 38, and Rashford decides, we get news that he's benched or doesn't start, and then I'm sure there's another benching elsewhere. In that scenario, is like a Rashford move to a Arsenal mid or something worth a hit?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I mean, if you're taking out a player, there's very low upside. But if you're taking out a player who's not starting and you know it's confirmed, not a rumor, it's confirmed that he's not starting, 2 players on the bench, you get one for free, you get another one for a hit. Yes, maybe that can work out. Assuming, of course, that your bench option isn't better. So if you're benching a good player,
You just
then
play the
just bench
bencher.
Rashford
Yeah,
for
yeah,
another player.
yeah.
Hits generally don't work out in one game week. Have that rule. I know in our minds, it's a bit like gambling or other things that we do. We fixate only on the win. We dream about the win. We dream about the haul, that my guy will score a brace. But, practically speaking, expected points is about 4 to 5. So if you take a
Nice.
hit, you're basically giving up your upside.
Okay.
So yeah, keep Man United. I don't think there's any reason to lose them unless they're not starting.
By the way,
Um,
just this football talk again, but Napoli just won the Serie A, and first time in 30 years, and they signed Kim Min Jae from Fenerbahce, and he was outstanding he was the best
yeah,
defender in the league,
he's
right?
rumored to join Man
He's
United. Yeah,
rumored to join United, and I know you haven't seen a lot of him. And United fans, if you haven't seen a lot of him, this guy's incredible. Like I and very proud of him as a fellow Korean. But you watch out for him, United fans. He's going to be fantastic. I don't know where he fits in. He still has to. Maybe they play a three at the back, but
is he right-footed or
yeah,
left-footed?
he can play both. So he's amazing at carrying the ball up. Obviously, great defender. Really good at sort of long. He reminds me of like Van Dijk when Van Dijk's playing really well. So I think you'll be very surprised at what you have in your
Not
hands.
not
Yeah.
Ronaldo overplaying his South Korean players, but yeah,
I
would
mean
be yeah.
that's my branding. That's what I need to do. Like we have very few players. But yeah, he's really really good. So yeah. I think
Good. Look
Newcastle
forward
too
to
are
it.
looking to maybe sneak him in, but I do think that United are likely to bring him in. Yeah.
Cool, cool. Okay, so let me see. I'm going down the teams to see if there's other talking points. Leicester, West Ham. Let's talk about, actually, no, Brighton, Villa. I need to talk about Brighton, Villa. So Brighton are mathematically could be through if they, well, mathematically will be through if they draw or win against Man City. Let's say they're not, and let's say they lose to Man City. I think even then they could put out a decent team. So there's no reason to lose your Brighton assets. It's just still an elite attack, and they could do well. But I think Villa have to win. I mean, they will want to win. Not have to, but they will want to win. So I think a lot of people are ignoring Watkins because he's not a new shiny toy. They've
Mm.
owned him. He's blanked a couple of times. So they've forgotten that he was very good. We were so attracted to Ollie Watkins that we had him on a free hit. Who was he playing? Away to Newcastle or something? Or he had a tough game.
Yeah.
But we had him because the guy couldn't stop scoring. He's on penalties. He's the focal point of the attack. All the things we said 6 weeks ago, you can watch the video. Why are people not looking at Watkins?
Because he's ruined my season, Pras.
I mean, you don't get him, fine, but other people.
No, it's fair. It's a good point. Yeah, if they especially the fact that they're going for that seventh place could be interesting. Yeah.
He's going to start get 90 minutes.
Yeah.
If he scores that pen in the last game, people are talking about Watkins this week.
And Brighton doesn't scare you at all, right? Even though they're not defensively, they're more of a offensive machine. Yeah.
Villa at home are a good team.
Mm.
And Brighton with lacking motivation will still do well, but maybe minutes. Maybe they don't play all the big guns. They are knackered. Remember that. I mean, they have been playing midweek after midweek after midweek. I mean, basically, like they've over the last 5-6 weeks, they've had a Man United type season. So, I mean, Mitoma is still being flogged, even though he looks tired. Yes, he could have scored points this game week. Those two glaring misses. But yeah, you never know who starts that game.
I have a question. What's the difference between Aston Villa wanting to play the Conference League, Europa Conference League, and Tottenham not wanting to play the Conference League? Isn't there how does the money work here? Like for a team like Aston Villa, is it just more games, more attendance, or do you know what?
Well, there's not a huge prize money for the Conference League. It's about winning a trophy. You see what West Ham is doing right now, right? They're in a final. Their fans are absolutely buzzing because they made a European Cup final. It's the Conference League, so it's not like they're going to get 50 million prize money for it, but it's a trophy. So for Aston Villa, I mean, you'd argue Tottenham would want a trophy as well, but that's not me to say. Aston Villa want a trophy. They want European football back, and so they're desperate for it.
Yeah.
Spurs want top 4 next season. They don't want distractions. So they're thinking if we're not in it, then maybe we'll be better off under a new manager who can focus on the league. A kind of like an Arsenal did this year, or, like in seasons past when Chelsea haven't had any European distractions. So that's basically the difference in motivations.
Yeah, well put. Yeah.
So I like Watkins as a pick, personally. I even like Ramsey or somebody as a midfield pick, but there's other better midfield picks. So this is why I think in attack. And again, I'm talking about Watkins because people have a striker spot that they may want to use. Like Isak could be fine against Chelsea, but maybe if you wanted to punt, then Isak to Watkins or Jesus or Kane or even Alvarez if he's starting are all decent shots.
Nice.
And yes, Stefan makes a good point that Unai Emery has an amazing record in Europe. So that guy is desperate for Europe. Yeah. I mean, although that's Europa League, not Conference League, but still.
Yeah. For Aston Villa to be just playing in Europe also is very meaningful. And, Spurs are trying to rebuild and sort of focus on, getting one thing done at a time. So, yeah, I get it.
Okay, so then Leicester, West Ham. Let's talk about that as the final game.
Mm-hmm.
Thing here is, I think Maddison and Barnes will start again. That was very specific against Newcastle where he benched them because he just thought, if I'm going to attack Newcastle, I'm going to lose this game. So basically, the tactics were, let's just get a draw and move on. So I think Maddison definitely starts. Whether you want to go there or not is a different question. I think he's a fair punt if they have to win. Vardy is a fair punt. Iheanacho is a fair punt. But more importantly, on the other side, on West Ham's side, now, people are saying West Ham have a final to come. The final is 10 days after. So it actually, their main team could play. And it's a bit like Spurs where you could get, if you can nail down the player that plays between minute 60 to minute 90, again, the period where Leicester will have to go for it, then I'm good with that punt. I've seen a lot of Bowen shouts, Antonio shouts. I don't think those guys, if they start, play over 60 minutes just to protect them for the final.
Yeah. And you think they'll just play to get rhythm under their belt and just
10 days later is the game.
Yeah.
But that's for me is a problem because if they start, then they're not as good punts because as you want a guy who's playing all 90 minutes in that game.
In bit other like words, Kane. We can't. Even if you get team news, this is impossible to predict.
It's impossible to predict. Yeah. This is why I'm little less keen on West Ham picks. But I think if you can nail down the guy who plays 90 minutes, you're in for points.
Yeah, nice.
Mitro, yes, FPLA plus Mitro is back to Old Trafford. Yeah, he's a fair punt. I mean, I was on Sky and the one question Gianni and I disagreed with. They asked if Mitro is a good punt. I said, nah, he's useless. He's got 2 tough games. And obviously he braces. Look, he's back to Old Trafford. Look, Man United have been decent in terms of conceding big chances. I don't think he's the best pick. So I'm going to stick to my original opinion. Yes, the vibes are there because he's coming back to the stadium where he got the original 8-game week ban. But yeah, I think Man United will want to keep it solid last home game week of the season.
Yeah, I'm not even considering him, but wouldn't be surprised to see him get 2 goals.
People are talking about DCL a lot in the Everton section. Is DCL fit? I don't think he's fit. I don't think he's fit.
But
no. I mean, he was subbed off. So, of course, let's see if he's... I mean, he could be a good pick as well if he's fit.
If he's
then
fit
you're just taking a punt.
If he's fit and playing 90, would you consider him?
He won't play 90. His body won't last. Yeah. But yeah, he's decent. If he's fit, and if you told me now that I've seen the future and he plays 90 minutes, yeah, he's a good pick.
Okay.
That's it, right?
Yeah, that's it.
There's just a couple of other supplementary slides, which we can just show. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it.
Mm-hmm.
The next slide is on odds because I think this game week, it all depends on what happens in this one game week.
Mm-hmm.
So this is from FPL Review, by the way. Shout out to FPL Review, a great website to sort of help you plan or think about expected points. So this is what goes into their model. So they obviously take clean sheet data for defender points, midfielder points, and they take goal scoring odds into account as in addition to underlying data for expected points.
Yeah.
So clean sheets, Everton is the highest. So I think our thing on Everton defenders, or I should say Adam from Above Average FPL's thing on Everton defenders, I think it's fine. I think it's a fair pick to get an Everton defender. for the reasons and the narratives we talked about. And then Arsenal and Man United all decent as well.
Yep. And then predicted points.
No, so the other one is basically top goal scoring data. So if Calvert-Lewin, I think people were talking about Calvert-Lewin, if he starts, he's the highest odds for scoring this game week, followed by Salah, Haaland. This assumes 90 minutes, by the way. Start and get 90 minutes. And then Mopai, because obviously if he gets 90 minutes, they're basically predicting that this is a very good fixture for Everton and they should score and keep a clean sheet, which is basically our prediction of a 2-0, right?
Yep.
And then Salah is higher in goal scoring odds than Haaland, maybe because it's a better fixture. Southampton away is obviously relegated. Brentford is not an easy game. So that's this. You see some Arsenal players as well in here. Jesus is 44%. Watkins is 43%. So Watkins and Kane are the same goal scoring odds for all the hype about Kane, but no one's talking about Watkins. And then let's go to the last slide. Sorry, Andy.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I was saying let's go to the last slide, which is basically expected points from FF Scouts members area. And I think the guys at Scoutcast also showed this. I don't want to use this to show you who are the players to pick because we've just spent an hour talking about it. But I want to show this as why a hit may not be as worth it, especially if your player is starting. If your player is starting, he gets 2 appearance points. You're taking a hit, that's 6 points. The only player expected to score more than 6 points is Salah.
Yeah.
So it just feels like last game week hits could work out, but more likely will not work out. That's where I am.
Yeah. Not much to add
So in
here.
context of hits, I mean, maybe let's talk about your bus team so that we can talk about hits that you are thinking about and upside moves that you're thinking about.
Yeah, I also think that price points looking at the final game week really doesn't matter because price points are made based on sort of a season outlook or 5 games, 10 games data outlook. And when it comes to one game, each team is playing a different team. I mean, this is pretty obvious stuff. So I wouldn't fixate so much on trying to get a more expensive player just for the sake of them being expensive, if you know what I mean.
Oh, of course. This is a last fling. So yeah, get anyone who you can afford.
Yep. So this is my team. City and Brighton play today. I'm really hoping for Alvarez and Enciso start. By the way, guys, this is our final team reveals before the end of the season, and I must say it's been a pleasure. But please do subscribe to FS Scout and look out for great content next season, whether it be BQ, whether it be Scoutcast. I'm sure David has some stuff under his sleeves that he's thinking about. Hit the like button if you don't mind, and especially next season if you can, signing up for FF Scout membership early on for a discount. Might help you excel, or it's just a fun tool to use. So check out all the information related to FF Scout, and we really appreciate your support with burning questions this season. So we get to our team reveal. I have a 4-4-2 right now. Ederson in goal. In the mid defense, I've got Trent, Estupinan, Shaw, Trippier. Midfield, I've got Fernandes, Salah, Rashford, Mitoma. And up top, I've got Haaland and Alvarez. Enciso first off the bench, Botman, and then Da Silva, who you don't have to worry about. So this is I have no idea what's going to happen because I already see 3 or 4 or 5 players possibly getting rotated. Very limited minutes.
Just don't panic.
If
you
I'm not
see
panicking.
2 or 3 players,
I'm just accepting my
starting.
fate. Whatever happens this week, and I'm gonna
People
enjoy
could come off the bench and score as well, right? So look, I mean, you got your points with Alvarez. I mean, I'm gonna call you a little bit jammy here, so sorry, but I think back to Alvarez, I really debated it.
Yeah.
But my thinking was that there is no chance City rotate in the Chelsea game because I was assuming Arsenal would beat Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
So now if you get 2 starts from Alvarez, you've already got your upside.
Pras, when I was getting Alvarez, the question I was asking myself is, he's not going to start this game. So am I okay with taking the risk for him to start the next game? That was actually the train of thought I had. And, when he got the start, I was very happy. And then obviously when you're starting and his second goal gets ruled out, you get a little greedy and you think he could have gotten more. So that's the state I'm in right now. We need more tonight. That's what
No,
we
no, go
need.
for it. Look, I think it's
Yeah.
worked out, and so that's how it should be. So you shouldn't think you've used one transfer to get that upside where others didn't do that. So now, if you give up a little bit of that upside because two of your players aren't starting and you don't take a hit, you just change one of them. You just accept that because you got your upside already.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. Yeah.
So where are you thinking in terms of your moves? Brighton mid to Eze?
By the way, I think if Enciso starts, I might start him over Estupinan. I think Enciso's positioning is awful right now. Ferguson is the one up top, and he's playing like basically right wing back, so it's not looking great. If anybody has Enciso, that's going to be a question mark whether you start Estupinan or Enciso. Right now, I'm thinking if Rashford is out, for example, I can get to any of those Arsenal assets, so I'll probably go to Saka. That's where I'm at. I would love to get to Son, but that means removing Salah pretty much. Unless there's a hit
Not for,
worth it
you can't go
elsewhere.
for Bruno to Son, right?
I can't I if I could I would have done it, but I can't do that. Yeah. So it's only Salah and that sounds insane. But I might go insane. I might go Salah to Son and captain him. Just go for it. Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you, how far are you from 10K?
About 30 points. Yeah.
You're not going to get there. I mean,
I'm not
sorry
going
to
to
say.
get there. Yeah.
So get the guy you want. I mean, there is no difference between 32K or 28K or 42K, right? No one's going to remember. You yourself won't
Yeah, only
remember.
you'll remember it, but still you'll remember it, Like you'll forget.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
between 30 and 45K, there's no difference.
Oh, you don't think
I
Salah
would
can
even say,
damage me to the point of like 70, 80, 90K?
of course not. I mean,
Okay,
what are you
okay.
expecting from him?
Like
I mean, you just saw his
Reynolds, right?
expected points is 6.
Yeah, what if
So,
he gets like 15 points?
yeah, but then, yeah, it didn't work out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Wilson got 24 points and you're fine, right? We're
Yeah.
alive. So it's okay.
Okay.
I
No,
mean,
no, no. I'm not saying I'm worried about that, but I do think that Salah is going to do really well against Southampton away.
then don't do that. Exactly.
Yeah.
So then don't do it. If take out a player who you think either who you know is not starting or you think won't do as well and get a player who you think will do well. This is why we are talking about 40 different players that are interesting. It will depend on your team on who is the weaker link and who is the guy to get. This is why I'm really telling people not to fixate on Eze because you'll see everyone getting Eze, even though for your particular team, your weakest link isn't that Brighton midfielder.
Yeah, I'm not focused on Eze. I think another potential move is if I hear Alvarez is not starting, I can pretty much get him to anyone around the 2 million, anyway within 2 million. So maybe I think that means I can get to Jesus. Watkins becomes an
Yeah.
option there as well. So
One last
yeah,
fling with Watkins,
yeah,
man.
one
It's
last
happening.
fling. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So my team is similar. I don't have it in front of me. Hold on. Let me open it. Okay. So I've got Edison in goal. There's a chance Edison doesn't start, by the way, or Kepa. So we just leave it. We just assume that they conceded 4 goals.
It is what it is.
Then Trent, Shaw, and Trippier is starting. And then in midfield, I have Rashford, McAllister, Mitoma, Salah, Bruno. And then in attack, Isak and Haaland. I'm benching Estupinian for now because I just fancy Villa to score. But he's an option. If many players are rotated, then he comes on. I definitely need to lose Isak. So this is why I'm thinking more along the lines of Kane, Jesus, Watkins, or any other attacker that becomes, or even Edward. And then the second one is, I have 2 free transfers. So the second one can be anything. So most likely it'll be Mitoma out. Mitoma out mainly because he's very highly owned. And I think people will just end up playing him. So I just feel that's an opportunity. Mitoma could be an Arsenal mid, could be Eze, could be anyone else. But I have a feeling it won't be Mitoma, it'll be Rashford or someone else who we don't envisage right now. Could be Haaland. So we will see. And I think flowcharts has been my thing this season. I think there needs to be a flowchart for every player that you think is going out. And if you have 2 free transfers, then you have a multi-dimensional flowchart where if Haaland and Rashford is out, then where can you go? If Haaland and Mitoma is out, then where can you go? And of course, there needs to be a base case where you don't get any news. So get ready with a pen and paper, 15 minutes to deadline, and then enjoy it. And then get your rest.
Yep. Nice. All right, guys. That's it.
I want to do a few shout outs before
Yeah.
we go. Um, so it's the last episode. I do want to thank a few people. So firstly, it's Scout, Chris, Jeff, and Sam, for basically laying the foundations of everything that we do. I want to thank the editorial team. I think Scout's editorial team is absolutely fantastic. So Neil, Tom, and Mark, Hibo does captaincy articles. The writers at FF Scout are absolutely amazing. So shout out to them. A lot of times when I'm sitting on a Monday evening thinking of what should we write, what should we talk about, I go to these guys' articles and I find ideas. So thank you to them. Thanks to Az and Joe. Basically, they've been behind the scenes helping us out with the graphics, with the thumbnails, with what we do, and obviously much more than that. So thanks to them. And I know David is taking over next season on the video front. The Scout Social. So Ian, FPL Partridge, and Tom, FPL Physio. These are the guys who run the socials in the background. So thank you to them. There is the leader of the burning questions, FPL Guns. I mean, we haven't talked about him, Ali. He's leading FPL by, I think, 15, 16 points. We're rooting for him to win it. So he's obviously won burning questions this year in terms of the mini league. You get a shout out, Ali. Nothing else, unfortunately, from us, but that's all it is. Then I want to thank the guests. We've had so many guests this year. We've had Baker, we've had Hibo so many times. We've had Joe, not the Scout Joe, the Joe from where is he from?
Malaysia. Yeah.
Malaysia. We've had Seb, we've had Danny or Bullet on Twitter. We've had Joe from Scout. We've had David Monday.
Hibo.
Am I forgetting anyone else? So those guys,
Yeah.
I want to thank the support that we get from some of the content creators around. So the Wire guys, LR, Bakar, Zoff, the above average FPL guys, the Black Box guys, Az and Mark. So thank you to them. I want to do a little bit of announcements. So FPL Meets, that is excellently run by Nima and Fella. They have a meetup on Gameweek 38. So it's in Thirsty Bear in Waterloo. If you're in London, go to it. Shout out for Gameweek 39, which is the charity game, the football game, which is run by Benny and Ash. Fantastically organized. That's on the 3rd of June at the Castle Vale Stadium. All of the proceeds go to charity, to Street Child United. So see if you can support that or go to the game if you can. I want to shout out Fantasy Football Fest, which is basically on the 11th of August. That is just before the deadline. So, we go again. So join Fantasy Football Fest. It's, I think, again at Waterloo. And last but not least, everyone here, everyone who listens to us, everyone who's been retweeting our stuff, liking our stuff, subscribing to FF Scout, giving us all the love. I mean, it's been incredible. So a long list. And last but not least, you, Andy, thank you for, a whole season of good chat, good FPL banter. And yeah, it's been great.
I mean, wow, well prepared. Shout out to all those people that you just mentioned. I feel the exact same
It's
way.
a
I
joint
swear to
shout out.
God. Yeah. But I would like to thank, I think the people who, whether you listen to us one time or you're here for every week, I think little messages and stuff like that really go a long way. And even if you don't message, I do feel the love, and it's very hard to be top notch all the time and try to do your best. But what I can say is I've always been trying to do my best, and if you could see that, I really appreciate it. I've done some incredible things through Burning Questions, something I didn't even imagine 2 years ago. Right, I was just on my phone, excited about the next game week, trying to beat my mini league friends. And 2 months ago, we were on Sky Sports, which was something I don't want to be a sports broadcaster or a full time podcaster or full time content creator. I have things in life that I need to take care of, but to be able to do this is something I'll forever remember, regardless of how long this goes. Thank you, Pras. I think Burning Questions is, this is led by you, and I do my part to keep it up. And
Nothing like that.
I think our relationship is going to, regardless of however what happens in life, this is something that I will cherish forever. So I always appreciate you, my brother.
Likewise.
Thank you to all the names that we see very very often. You know, I don't want to mention everybody because
I want to
everyone
do it. I
listens.
wanted to
Yeah,
do a listener shout out, but I was like, I'm gonna
there's
miss
too
out so many
many.
because
There's
there's
too
just so many
many.
we see in the
Yeah,
chat and
yeah,
who retweet, who like our stuff. So I mean, it's
yeah.
incredible, man. It's
Incredible.
an absolute
Yeah,
privilege.
yeah. It's like something I'm so proud about. Not like becoming popular or famous, and I don't care about that. It's just like proud that I'm able to have a platform to speak about Fantasy Premier League. Right. That's an incredible thing to have, and to be able to share it with you guys and you know, give back to the community that has given me so much. So that's how I always feel. I don't take it for granted. And I don't, you know, value myself as a better manager than anybody else. That's not the point. It's just I just like talking about this, and having a place to talk about it every week with you is incredible. So thank you guys so much. Yeah,
Thank you, thank you. And we
yeah,
will, 15th of June, the fixtures are released, so the content never ends.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, good luck everybody
Yeah.
for game week 38.
Okay, guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next season.